now that I've mentioned all those heavy metal toxins, I want to mention the one that is another toxin that we are constantly being bombarded with, and that is actually something that I was saying when I mentioned to you, Johnny, when it comes to the skin. And I have noticed, and I actually thought it was getting better because I was aware of what was happening, but I recently noticed that I was having, and I am talking the worst skin condition. It didn't even make sense to me, and it's only on 2 fingers, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And then suddenly I realized it was the 2 fingers that I've been using for my phone, the 2 fingers that constantly I'm touching the screen with. And so I ended up getting a stylist, and it actually started getting better. I thought that was it, and I thought it was better, but nope. It reoccurred, and I realized, ironically, where it's located is, even though I was using the stylus, it was still affecting, and it's from the cell phone. And since this has happened, since the last week's show, and it came right back again, even with the stylist, I know for sure that's what it is because I started using my other hand. And sure enough, I'm having the same thing on the 1 finger that is near the phone. And I can't be quiet about this because the cell phone radiation is an issue, and it increases oxidative stress. But because this has happened to me this week, I've started doing a lot of research, and it is all over. There are so many reports, and there's so much out there with people complaining about hand pain, and they now have the diagnosis of exactly what I have all over, on my fingers, and it's dermatitis, cell phone dermatitis. And I'm going to quickly give you some medical terminology 101. And derma, of course, meaning the skin, and itis. And you know what itis is? Inflammation. And for those, please go back to my shows. Inflammation and oxidative stress go hand in hand. So they actually have a condition. Look it up yourself, cell phone dermatitis. And if it's increasing inflammation, it's increasing oxidative stress. And as I've mentioned in all my studies and a lot of my previous shows, oxidative stress, verified, confirmed, increases cancer, increases all those things. So as much as people want to deny that cell phones increase cancer, the evidence is there too. If you look up the research at PubMed.gov, you can see that it increases brain cancer. So this is something that not only, so if it's affecting your skin, obviously it's affecting everything. And I'm talking, what I'm dealing with is so painful, it's all the way down to the bone. But one thing I didn't even realize last week is when I noticed it, around the same time that this occurred, and I was thinking, okay, maybe it had something to do with the case because I didn't have my protection case on there in the stylus, but sure enough, it came right back. I forgot that I have been so busy that I ran out of my Pro Tandem NRF2 Synergizer. And I have mentioned this, and I can't help but I've got to. I've tried to keep from really mentioning the name because I don't want to make it like I'm pushing something, but this happens to be, this is a product at MG Holistics, but there is no question this has some amazing benefits. And ironically, when I ran out of this is when I'm noticing I'm having the issue with my fingers on the cell phone. But I'm still very concerned with what's happening with this cell phone and with the radiation that we may not feel, but it is definitely affecting us. And based off the research, when I saw all the numbers of other complaints out there that's all over, it is something that we need to be careful of and concerned with. But I am going to mention the Pro Tandem NRF2 again, is because I can't make any claims and I won't make any claims. But when it comes to being verified, I would like everybody to go to PubMed.gov and put in Pro Tandem, PROTANDIM, NRF2, and see all the benefits and what it does in regards to oxidative stress. This has been known. There are studies. It's been around for years. The awards that the doctor that designed this is, you cannot, when I mention just antioxidants, you cannot just take antioxidants. This is specially formulated and proven to decrease oxidative stress 40% in 30 days, which is huge. I mean, that is a big deal, as well as it's been known to increase glutathione 300%. There's another study that says that. And now, when it comes to glutathione and oxidative stress, and it is, when you have elevated glutathione, you have a reduction of oxidative stress. Now, I'm going to go back to these studies that I pulled up in regards to COVID. And when it comes to COVID, there is all kinds of studies. Please, once again, go to PubMed and pull up all the studies when it comes to oxidative stress and COVID, and pull up glutathione in COVID. These are all hand-in-hand and relative, as well as the vitamin D. That's the one for you, Sunshine Dottie, that we've talked about, because there is a definite correlation when it comes to a lack of vitamin D and COVID. But ironically, vitamin D also decreases oxidative stress. So a vitamin C deficiency will, of course, mean an increase in oxidative stress. But if you take vitamin D, or if you are out in the sun with the natural form of vitamin D, you're going to have a decrease in oxidative stress, and that's verified in the studies too. But the one thing I'm going to point out again, and I kind of touched on it on my show last week, is because of what is going on with my hand and how bad it is, and the more research I do and I see all these issues out there, this is going to sound like, initially when it happened and people were saying it seemed kind of outrageous, because I don't know if Johnny, I don't know if you remember hearing this, but do you remember when COVID hit, a lot of people were saying it was because of when 5G came out?
Exactly. Yes, I do.
Okay, so with that said, with all the research out there that's confirming that now, for instance, that, here we are, the cell phones increase oxidative stress, and I think where people thought that's absolutely absurd, they were probably thinking, they're implying that it actually created the virus. But that's not what the implication is. The implication is we've had COVID. The COVID virus has been around, and they're saying, oh, well, it's just this strain that's so horrible. But if you really think about it, it's not that the strain is so horrible, it's that we've been bombarded with oxidative stress, and our bodies, and well, for those that were already had some deficiencies, they couldn't take that extra stressor when it came to the cell phone. And I'm going to also mention a study that I pulled up, and that had to do with, and it is in PubMed.gov, and that is where it shows that ROS, and remember, or free radicals, but ROS, which is when you have elevated ROS, that is oxidative stress. That is actually elevated ROS is what oxidative stress is. Oxidative stress is actually what the condition is called, but it is caused by elevated ROS. And it is in there that ROS actually increases the viral load of COVID. So there is definitely an issue there, and there's definitely concern when it comes to toxins and avoiding them. So I'm wanting to mention this because I'm going to do everything I can. So when it comes to the cell phones, try to, when it comes to even there's gloves out there. I even have, if you want to learn more, I'm going to talk about it next week. There's some products that help protect yourself, but at the same time, one of the most valuable things you can do is to focus on making sure to decrease the oxidative stress and to keep those cell phones away from you as much as possible. Of course, we use them all the time, but think about where you're holding it, or keep it in a bag as opposed to rather holding it in your hand, or use a stylus, or even, they've got gloves out there, but it's definitely a concern. But another thing I want to point out is, like, for instance, if you can avoid it, because I know so many people are into all these technologies and they're wanting to wear their iPhone watches and put all these things all over their bodies, and if it has a frequency that is going through you, but it's something that you may not feel, but it is definitely affecting you. And I was wanting to do a demonstration, but I'm going to see if I can. I'm probably going to end up doing that next week. But I have a device here, and it is actually, it's a beamer, and it increases circulation. And when it comes to getting rid of toxins, once again, as we've talked before about blood flow, and when it comes to microcirculation, what depletes or what actually increases oxygenation and decreases the toxins is going to be microcirculation, because what feeds those cells is the microcirculation and those microvessels. So it is important to have good circulation. And so once I mentioned these detoxification elements when it comes to cleansing your gut, a lot of these are elimination, they're cleansing your gut, you still need to get those toxins out of your bloodstream. And that is where the beamer circulation, microvessel circulation, is going to be very beneficial. And so I wanted to do a demonstration, but I'm going to actually talk through the demonstration, because the beamer is actually a device that increases circulation, microcirculation, by a frequency. And there's no question, I've seen it. I've gone through myself to a microscopy lab, and you can see the change in the cells. But you don't feel it at the time. So I mentioned this last week, but this is something for people to be aware of, because just because you don't feel it doesn't mean it's not affecting you. So it is so important to be very careful and to just kind of be more aware. And if you can avoid being bombarded with these camera phones on you, or things that are constantly on you all the time, do your best to kind of stay away from it. And also too, if you've got like power cords, the power box itself, you want to keep away from you. If you've got your cell phone on, let's see, mobile hotspot, and you don't need it, make sure you turn it off. I mean, there's different ways you can kind of help to protect yourself.